They've got a power and a force that you've never seen before. They've got the ability to morph and to even up the score. No one can ever take them down. The power lies on their side. Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Mighty Morphin Power Rangers!
Welcome to supmediareviews, the podcast that never needs spoiler alerts because it takes you back in time to relive the nostalgia of classic TV shows and films that you've probably already seen. I'm your host, Kiara, and each week I'll dive into the archives to bring you my take on movies and TV shows from at least 20 years ago. From cult classics to forgotten gems, I'll review them all and give my honest opinion on their impact and whether or not they still hold up today. Join me as we revisit the iconic characters, memorable moments, and timeless themes that made these shows and films so special. So take a break from adulting and get ready for a trip down memory lane with supmediareviews. What is up, home slices? Thanks so much for tuning into supmediareviews. I'm your host, Kiara, and I am stoked to review the nostalgic 1995 film, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. This movie features Karen Ashley as Aisha, the Yellow Ranger, Johnny Young Bosch as Adam, the Black Ranger, Steve Cardenas as Rocky, the Red Ranger, Jason David Frank as Tommy, the White Ranger, rest in peace, Amy Jo Johnson as Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, and David Yost as Billy, the Blue Ranger. I fondly remember watching this movie as a kid, and apparently I am not the only one. I have a special guest joining me today. I'm going to give a warm supmediareviews welcome to cinephile and YouTuber Zach from Zach Attacks Reviews. Say hi, Zach.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me on, Kiara. I'm super excited.
Yes, of course. I'm excited that you're joining me today as well. Now, Zach's YouTube channel features great videos on all things movies, and it leans towards more current films. Zach, can you tell our listeners more about your channel and where they can find you?
Yeah, so I call myself the baby cinephile. I just started loving movies deeply just a couple years ago. Of course, it's been a big part of my life, but I just watched them and just never really processed them. But I started doing that more now. And my YouTube channel is reviews of current movies, but I also have a throwback series where I review older movies as well that I've never seen before. So that's been really great. So you can find me at Zach Attack Reviews on YouTube and then on all social media at Zach Attack RVS because reviews is apparently too long to write out.
Nice. And that is Zach with an H for the listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
The right way to spell it.
Well, yeah. Okay, I will not argue with you there. So I'm actually really excited to hear Zach's thoughts on an older film. But before we jump into the fun facts, I have to plug next week's episode of supmediareviews. Now, June 11th, 2024 marks the 20-year anniversary of my favorite movie of all time, Napoleon Dynamite. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing that film, and I cannot contain my excitement. I love that movie so much. So make sure you follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest to stay up to date on new episode releases. You do not want to miss that one, okay? It's, again, literally my favorite movie. Now, let's go back to our regularly scheduled programming with some fun facts about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Now, in this first fun fact, the production placed an ad in a Sydney newspaper telling fans to come and see the fireworks show with the Power Rangers at Darling Harbor. It was actually a ploy to get people for the final crowd scene so the producers wouldn't have to pay for extras. Zach, was this creative or cheap?
Both?
You know what? That's not mutually exclusive. You're right.
Yeah, I feel like the best indie production. That's a very indie movie thing to do. Is
Yes.
to do something like that. That's very, very smart. Especially for Power Rangers. I'm pretty sure they didn't have a lot of money to make a movie. That show is very cheap. So it makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. And they have a very, they always had like a scrappy feeling to it. Like they always had that kind of scrappiness of like, we're putting this together and we're doing the best we can.
Yeah. We started from the bottom and now we made it to this point.
Yes. Exactly. Now, in the second fun fact, this was the first Power Rangers feature to use 100% new material. The TV shows use action scenes from the Super Sentai series in Japan. Zach, what is your experience with the television series of Power Rangers?
So it was a big part of my life for a long time. I think I stopped at Dino Thunder. So I watched it a little longer than most people my age did. I think it got to the point where they started getting like magic wands and capes, and that's kind of where I like jumped out of it. But everything before that was a huge part of my life, especially this movie and the second movie.
Okay, nice. Zach, can I ask how old you were when this movie came out?
How old? This is 95?
Mm-hmm.
I was 5.
Oh, me too. Okay. Okay, yeah. I've always been curious because this movie features Power Rangers who are teenagers. But I've always wondered, were teenagers actually watching Power Rangers like when it first came out? I feel like the audience was always younger kids who would like look up to a teenager as opposed to teenagers themselves. That's just my thought.
I feel like most of the crowd was like that. My brother introduced me to Power Rangers, and he's several years older than me. He probably was a teenager when this came out. Mm-hmm. So maybe there are some teenagers. But when I was watching the show, like the movie now, I'm like, those aren't teenagers. Those are grown ass
yes,
grown men. Like they that's not a kid at all.
Yes. They have mortgages like oh, goodness. Teenagers. Jeez. Okay. So in the final fun fact, when Dulcia in the movie asks Adam, I believe Adam's the Black Ranger, what's wrong, he answers, I'm a frog. Now, later at the 2007 Power Morphicon, Johnny Young Bosch, who plays Adam, said that he ad-libbed the line and insisted that it be used in the movie because he felt that the frog was a lame choice for his character. What do you think?
I get it. Like everyone else has like these cool like animals that are predators, and you're a frog, and it's not even like, oh, I'm a cool poisonous frog. You're just a frog. Yeah. So I get it. He got the little you're cute like a prince.
Yeah.
In there with the kiss. Cool. At least he's just like, yeah, I'm cute too. Everybody over here looking at Tommy, but I'm here.
Yes, I also kind of agree that a frog is lame. I'm curious. Can we do a quick brainstorm on what other animal he could have been?
So we had the hawk or like eagle
Falcon.
thing with Tommy. Yeah, we had a bear, which is way cooler. We had the were like the wolf with the Blue Ranger.
Maybe some kind of cat, like a jaguar, bobcat.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had a cat because the Pink Ranger was
either.
also a bird. Yeah, they could have gave him. He didn't have to be a frog.
Yeah. He didn't. I don't know what they were thinking.
I think they just wanted the whole scene with the tongue.
Okay.
And the wraparound and that struggle and stuff like that. I think they thought that would be cool, and you can't really do that with any of the other animals. But
that makes sense. Elephant trunk? I don't know. That would have been better.
Yeah, he could have been an elephant. Anything but a frog.
I feel like we are putting more thought into this than the writers did. So
they did.
Okay, so if you want to check out Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, you can watch it on YouTube as of the recording of this episode. Not sure about the legalities of that, but...
The struggle I had finding this movie.
Yes.
I was like, am I going to be able to do this?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I was like, oh, okay. I was relieved. There is a place for you to actually watch this movie. Now, this is the point of the show where we talk about our personal connections to this film. Zach, tell us about your personal connection to this movie and the Power Ranger franchise. What makes it like iconic and nostalgic for you?
So yeah, I mentioned a little bit earlier, like the Power Rangers franchise is one of the first things, like my identity, not my identity, but like a lot of the things that I'm into, like my nerdy stuff is from my brother. Like he introduced me to Power Rangers. He introduced me to Yu-Gi-Oh! He introduced me to anime. He introduced me to wrestling. All things that affected my life. And in the Power Rangers movie was one of the first movies I've seen in theaters. Oh. It's like a fond memory. I can remember going to the theater to watch the film and then owning that VHS. Like I still have that Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers VHS. So I guess if I couldn't find it on the internet, I could have bought a cheap VHS and watched it. And just the whole like teamwork, the multiculturalism of the team. You don't really see that in other franchises, even to this day.
Right.
They were just cool to me. It was like, these are teenagers. They're supposedly, just a couple years older than me. And they're just kicking ass and taking names, and they're funny. And they have all these one-liners. And I've never seen a TV show get a movie, like a movie in the theaters. It's usually a TV show will get like a TV movie. But like one that you see the same characters that you love on the show now in the movies, and they get like a movie production, that blew my mind.
You know what? I never thought about that, but that is a really good point. And that's one thing that I feel like child or kid shows do better than other things is they just expand the universe, right? And it's not just a movie. There's toys, there's cereal, there's like
everything, pins,
right,
phone cases.
Exactly. And so they just make it so you can get immersed. And a lot of it has to do with capitalism, but like, make your money.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, for me, I watched quite a bit of Power Rangers as a child. I want to say probably from like 5 to 8 was around the times that I was watching it the most. I enjoy like the different variations that they do because in this movie, they were like prehistoric animals, and then they went to like regular animals, but then there were other versions of the Power Rangers. So I enjoyed that variety. But most importantly, I like this because it included girls. So like when I was growing up, Nickelodeon was my favorite channel to watch because I felt like Cartoon Network was very boy centric. Like they had almost no programming for girls besides like Powerpuff Girls is really the only thing that I can remember. And so I enjoyed the fact that this was like a co-ed group. They were multicultural. There was always someone who looked like me. And representation
so
matters. It is.
Look,
yes.
the Black Ranger, the original Black Ranger's name was Zach. You know how important that is for me as a Black Zach? Especially since all the Zachs before that were white.
Yes.
That's on TV, like Saved by the Bell. And then after this was like Zach and Cody or whatever. Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. Like I never saw another Black Zach after that. So it was so important to me. So yeah, you're right on point with that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it was nice to see girls being a part of like this butt-kicking crew of Power Rangers, right? But when it comes to this movie in particular, I had a cousin that I would spend summers with in Georgia, and he absolutely loved the Power Rangers. And so we watched this movie over and over and over that summer. And I even remember his mom buying us some type of like toy that was supposed to be like a prop in the movie or something like that. I remember having one of those. So that was pretty cool. He also would like try to practice the fighting moves on me, but I was like, nah.
She's like, don't try this at home. And he was like,
right.
no, I'm try it.
No, I wasn't having it. But I really grew to associate this movie with like, having fun with my cousin during the summer, something that we bonded over. So it was a big part of my childhood. Now, prior to watching this movie for the review, I hadn't seen it in like 20 years probably. Was probably the last time I watched it. So I actually am really excited to dive into this review. So let's get into it. All right, so we open the movie with the infamous scrolling text over the background of the stars, and we hear a voiceover giving us some background about the movie, right? I'm going to read what the text is. Centuries ago, a legendary interdimensional being known as Zordon came to the city of Angel Grove to establish a command center for his never-ending struggle against evil. With the aid of his trusted assistant, Alpha 5, the noble master sought out 6 extraordinary teenagers and gave them the power to transform into a superhuman fighting force. In times of great need, the young heroes could use their powers to call upon colossal assault vehicles known as Zords. The identity of the 6 remained a guarded secret. Today, that tradition continues. So that's the text. They're setting the stage for us. And so the two things that kind of stand out for me is like, why teenagers?
I guess because they don't got jobs. They don't have responsibilities and kids. So if they die, it's not like it's not like the kid is going to be abandoned. That's the only thing. Because if you notice this type of like fantasy stuff, it's always teenagers. They're always the chosen ones. They're always just not Power Rangers and everything. And it's just, I feel like it's because they're like, oh, you guys got nothing to do. Y'all could go to school and still be Power Rangers.
You know what? Like. That's an interesting point because I'm like, since when has anyone chosen teenagers to do anything like in real life?
Not in real life.
No. So I was like, teenager. Okay, whatever.
They're not really that responsible in real life. I don't know.
Right. Exactly.
I'm robbing banks at that age if I have Power Ranger powers.
You know what? Yeah, I think it would be very hard to find like some good upstanding teenagers to give those powers. That's hilarious. Oh, Jesus. The other thing I was like, it's weird that they pointed out the assault vehicles, like the Zords. I was like, why is that the thing that they want to say in this moment? That was weird to me, especially since they only showed up in like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yes. It was just like, I'm like, where's it at?
Yes. It was like,
get them out.
Where are they? It's so
Where are these
strange.
assault eagles?
Yes. Yeah. Anyways, that's the beginning of the movie. That's how they open up. So next up, we see the six Power Rangers.
Before you go to the next one, I want to talk about the crawl, right? So like watching this movie, I was like, my memory started clicking in, but then I was like, oh, I forgot it opened like this. I didn't remember a crawl when I first watched this film. Mm-hmm. But what I noticed that throughout this film, there's a lot of inspirations from other movies that came around the time and before. This crawl is very Star Wars-like. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's very, very smart, because it feels like they kind of took that kind of approach the best that they could with the budget that they had. So I noticed that. But also, why did they bring up that the heroes' identities were hidden? Like, that didn't come up in the story at all.
Mm-mm.
At least we saw the Zords.
Yes.
Ain't nobody care.
Yeah, not really. It was like the town knows that the Power Rangers exist. They just don't know who they are. Yeah. And it's like, but when we see them kind of teleport, I'm like, there's no one in that town that has ever witnessed.
Even in that scene, they didn't even like go anywhere like to hide in. It was still wide open.
It was.
What's happening?
Who knows? Who knows? Okay, so in the next scene, we see the 6 Power Rangers and 2 dudes named Skull and Bulk in a plane about to skydive to a particular location. Skull and Bulk are comic relief. They talk a big game, but they aren't really smart or tough, and they're always hungry. They give big, like Shaggy and Scooby energy for me. And a question that I keep asking throughout this movie is, why do the Power Rangers hang out with these guys?
It's so funny watching this film because, like, in the original series, they didn't hang out with Skull and Bone. Skull and Bone were their bullies.
I thought so too, yeah.
So I was like, why are they here?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they were hanging out there. They just kind of got thrown in. But right away, I feel like the music is like 90s sitcom-y. There was a part where it almost sounded like Seinfeld. And I was like, what is this music? It was very funny to me. And the humor was very 90s sitcom as well.
Oh, yeah. The one-liners. Oh, God.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, the 6 Rangers jump out of the plane, each with their own catchphrase and color coordinated, skydiving suits. We see a special connection between the pink and white Rangers, who are Kimberly and Tommy. It's very subtle in this movie, which I think is interesting. Tommy is the only Ranger with a board. He's sky surfing. So we see the Rangers synchronize skydive together with, their color coordinated suits. And this scene was actually pretty cool to me. I was like, this scene aged pretty well.
This is badass. Like, there was only one part of the scene where I could see the VFX.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think specifically where they came to hold hands. I was like, ooh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't have hold hands because I could see the sky's not really there. But other than that, it looked amazing.
It did. I was a little shocked at how well that held up.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that the music that's playing in the background is the Red Hot Chili Peppers version of Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, the music is okay in this movie.
It's like up and down. Like you get the Seinfeld thing when they're talking, but when they're doing action, it's actually good. It's weird.
Yeah, it's decent. So in this next scene, we see a large outdoor jump-a-thon that is being put on to raise money to save an observatory. We learned that Ryan's comet is 2 days away. So the crowd below awaits the landing of the 6 Rangers, and a young boy in the crowd named Fred tells his dad, who's a first responder, and apparently his dad had already skydived and had landed like in the parking lot instead of on this target that's painted on the ground. And so Fred tells his dad, like, watch the pros do it. And so the Rangers land one by one onto the bullseye. And it looks like this was like a competition to help raise money for the observatory. So all 6 Rangers land perfectly in the bullseye, breaking like a record from 1986. So they're accomplishing feats and breaking records and whatnot.
Before they even morph.
Yes. So when Fred and his dad come over, we see that Tommy seems to be the leader and kind of star of the team. Y'all, I think I had a big crush on Tommy.
Who didn't?
All of these people are actually very attractive people. Like, there's no ugly Rangers, okay?
That's one thing I'll give Power Rangers. They know how to, no matter what the season is, they make sure they hire at least 6 attractive people.
Yes.
At least.
Yes, exactly. So Bulk and Skull finally jump out of the plane. They're being silly. We get back to them later, okay? So in this next scene, we see the Rangers in their, again, color coordinated gear. They're rollerblading all over the city.
These are the most active teens I've ever seen in my life.
Wait, what did
Skydiving
you
and
say?
rollerblade? I said these are the most active teenagers I've seen in my life. Skydive and then rollerblading? You didn't go
Yes.
home after skydiving? Oh.
You should be tired, yes. Something in my brain, it was just like the town apparently doesn't know who the Power Rangers are, but you have this group of teens that always wear the same colors as the Power Rangers.
Yes. Matching the colors that they are, like, all the time.
How does this town not know? Is it one of those like Superman takes off his glasses?
Because it's kind of like, teenagers are not saving nobody. They're rollerblading. I guess it's kind of that thing.
Jeez.
It's like, oh no, I can't be Tommy. He barely knows that.
Yes. Well, why would you say that? And also, Tommy has the best bleach game because he should have been dirty throughout this movie. He was pearly white.
White.
His
At all times.
Yes.
No stains.
Exactly. So they're doing these stunts and jumps on these rollerblades, and I'm like, this is actually impressive. Like, I was I was mad that like when I started watching this movie and I was like, oh, I haven't seen this movie in 20 years. It's probably lame. And already I'm impressed by the skydiving and the rollerblading, and I was shocked. Okay.
I'm so glad you said that because I said that. I was like, wait, hold up. This movie is really good. I thought it was not going to hold up at all.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We get more into that later, but I was impressed with the beginning. So Skull and Bulk end up landing in a construction zone in the city, and they end up berating a construction worker right as the construction crew happens upon this metal seal that has like a face of a monster on it. And like all people in the movies do, they open this large metal cover. And smoke comes out, as well as this weird 3-fingered hand that has like talons on it and is holding some type of like purplish egg. A curious construction worker reaches out to the egg and ends up getting shocked by this kind of purple lightning. The lightning graphics are okay. Yeah. But Zach, if a large purple egg comes out of the ground, are you touching it?
No, I'm not even there.
Exactly.
I'm not even standing around. I'm calling the FBI. Where you at? Come push this back down.
Right, exactly. Like there was a monstrous face on the seal, so it was like, yeah.
They get new diseases touching eggs that pop out of the ground.
Exactly. Okay, so back to the rollerblading Rangers. Tommy gets a notification with the iconic.
Yeah, everyone knows that. It's either that
Which
or
is
Impossible.
great.
You know.
Yes, and I always get confused, but I think Kim Possible's only 5 tones. I think hers is do.
Yeah.
But it's very close. Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah. So the Rangers go to a private area where Tommy talks into his watch to Alpha, who informs them that they're needed at Zordon's command center right away. So they each use their watch to transform themselves into a rainbow that teleports them to the command center.
Yeah.
Again, how does nobody see this?
Broad daylight, not even nighttime.
Exactly.
They were just skating. It's not like they were in a restaurant and they went in the back alley. They're just wide open. No shade.
Yes. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, so the command center is a circular, like kind of stone building that's carved at the top of some rock formation, which would probably be very visible. I don't know why people don't know where this is.
Some type of satellite should have hit that already.
Yeah, I think so too. But inside the command center, Alpha, who's like a red robot person, is freaking out because their systems are being overloaded by a surge of evil energy. The Rangers arrive, and Zordon, who is a white pasty-faced hologram, tells the Rangers that the world is in danger. Apparently, 6,000 years ago, a morphological being named Ivan Ooze ruled the world with a reign of unparalleled terror and was just about to complete the creation of his ectomorphic titans, which are twin machines capable of enslaving the universe. Now, the old school Power Rangers from 6,000 years ago stopped Ivan the first time by burying him and his weapons, but now the construction workers have found where Ivan is buried. And if Ivan finds those titans, it's going to be game over for the world. So now the Rangers got to save the world and return Ivan to his dirt nap before he wakes up and finds those weapons. Zordon warns them that Ivan is very evil and that they should be careful. So here we are getting to the point in the story where it's like, we got trouble and we got to get the Rangers into action. What are your thoughts about this scene?
So this is the first scene that took me out of the movie because that ain't my Zordon. I don't know who that man was. I saw his face and I was like, how dare I replace...
Not my Zordon.
Yeah, I was like, who is this man? That's not Zordon. They replaced the show actor with some random dude, and it's very noticeable. 1, 2, the actual like Power Ranger base, the Zordon base, looks completely different too, so that kind of threw me off. The show base looked way cooler. It was like this darker, more colorful area, like the background was more dark and it was like more colorful. It looked more sci-fi-y. This kind of just looked like a place that they set up at. So that kind of threw me off just a bit. The fact that Zordon looked different, sound different, and then the place looked different. I was like, wait, I thought these were my same Power Rangers. Is this a multiverse? Like, what's going on?
Oh, it was just a renovation?
Yeah, word. It's like they fired the original Zordon and started renovating. He's like, nah, you gotta be brighter up in here. But after that, as I got used to it, was like, okay, it was probably either like, oh, let's get a more famous actor for the movie or something like that. I got back into the scene and I understood what's going on.
Okay, I hear you. So at night, back at the construction site, 2 security guards, one of them is sleeping and guarding this egg that apparently has Ivan inside of it. So we start to see some red kind of lights flashing, and out of them come 4 villains discussing the eggs. Now, all of the villains are human-sized, but they aren't really humans. So one of them has the head of a pig or like a hog. That's Mordant. One has the face of like a wolf-like creature with gold armor and wings. That's Goldar. Oh. One of them looks like a muscular body with the skin and skull removed and some silver armor. That's Lord Zed. And the last one is this really pretty lady with like a large dress and some crazy white hair. And of course, she is Rita Repulsa. What do you know about these villains?
Oh, man. Goes back to my childhood. These are the OGs. These are the ones that terrorize the Power Rangers all the time. It's so funny with Lord Zed is like, he was the villain for a couple seasons, and then they tried to get rid of him because kids were complaining about how scary he was. The fact that he looked like a person with their skin ripped off. How terrifying that was. So they had to replace him. But yeah, he still looked great. Even in now, you know, that he looks great for now. Like if they were to bring that character now, probably have to update it a little bit, it would work. I didn't realize how pretty Rita was until a couple years ago when they did the reunion, and I was like, wow. And I went back to look, I was like, oh, this lady's gorgeous. I always found her annoying and disgusting, but she really wasn't.
Did she repulse you?
Yeah, I thought that was the point. Rita Repulsa. And then Goldar is Goldar. That's the annoying piece of crap. I love him. He's hilarious. And this pig one, I don't really remember him from the original show, but he was really funny.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Goldar and Mordant, for the most part, are really the villain versions of like Skull and Bulk to me.
They really are.
Yes, essentially. So when the security guards notice these villains, Lord Zed shocks them with his weapon, which is like a large staff with a Z on the top, which puts them to sleep. And that graphic looks similar to the one when like the construction worker got shocked too, but a different color, I think. Yeah. Anyways, Lord Zed explains to the others that this egg is special and that he's been looking for it for over 2,000 years, and now he's ready to crack it open. What do you think about the costumes of these villains?
So Zed looks like Zed. Lord Zed, how he looked in the show. They movie-fied Goldar a bit.
Okay.
He looked a little, like, stuffed. I don't know how to explain that. He kind of looked like he was not used to being so stuffed with so much. The pig looks like a guy in a pig costume. As funny as he tried to be, as the best he tried to do, he looked like a guy in a pig costume. And Rita looked great, though. I'm not going to lie. Rita looked great.
Yeah. I feel like Lord Zed's costume was the best constructed. Even if this was today, I would still be like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
I hated Mordant's. Like, it reminded me of like the animatronics from Chuck E. Cheese.
Like Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes. I didn't care for his in particular, but I feel like they seem like an odd crew. They are mostly silly to me, which is fun, you know, for kids. We don't want the villains to be too scary, right? But Lord Zed, who was like the leader of this ragtag crew, opens up the egg using his staff, and it opens to like this weird bowl of snot, as Rita calls it, and this purplish slime soon morphs into an old purple man with flowing purple robes named Ivan Ooze. He is back after 6,000 years, and Rita is like, he's kind of cute.
That threw me off. Funny. I was like, what? You have bad taste. You have really bad taste.
Yes, or she's just a fan of purple. That's my favorite color. But Lord Zed grovels a little bit, and so when Ivan is like, "How can I repay you from, releasing me from this prison?" Lord Zed is like, "Do you know who Zordon is?" And Ivan is so pissed at hearing this name that he shoots purple lightning into the air in anger, and it's like, yeah, he knows Zordon. So Lord Zed is like, "Look, I need you to destroy Zordon so my evil can reign again." And Ivan is like, "Cool, I'm down with this plan." He wants to erase Zordon's legacy. And so the 4 villains leave and we are left with Ivan. And so Ivan sniffs around and he ends up smelling teenagers. And immediately afterward, the Rangers do their little rainbow teleportation thing to the construction site. And they get scared by a security guard who actually turns out to be Ivan Ooze himself. Ivan is a shapeshifter who can morph into other people or beings. But the thing that I like the most about Ivan right here is that he has a good sense of humor. He's like a little bit of a ham who likes an audience and he really plays it up. Yes, I love that about this character. When he's interacting with the Rangers, he's still kind of jovial and unbothered. And he's like, it's almost like they're little flies.
Yeah, it's like whatever they told you about the past Rangers is not true. I like it sounded like I defeated myself. That's how he acted with them. Like, I'm not scared of y'all at all.
Yes, basically. And I love that energy. Okay. He's happy to see that teenagers are still annoying 6,000 years later. And he's like, when they're like, "We're the Power Rangers," he's like, "Should I get my autograph book?"
Yo, his one-liners were crazy.
I love that. He's a hilarious villain. But then he uses his purple ooze to create creatures that he calls his kids. They actually kind of look like him a little bit. They have these chest plates. They're purple all over. They low-key have dreadlocks.
Yeah. High-key.
Yes, high-key. Yes. And then Ivan does his purple rainbow beam, out of there after welcoming the Rangers to his nightmare and leaving them to fight about 12 of his minions. I like Ivan.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. I'll say that this is not in the movie, but I do think that they had a missed opportunity of not making Ivan like a purple Power Ranger that went bad. We're going to talk about a scene later why I think that could have happened. But the fact that he was able to zoom away and look similar to how the Power Rangers does it. And in a scene that we're going to talk about a little later, they said a certain thing where I felt like they could have added that there. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The invasion scene.
That's very interesting.
But yeah, even though they didn't do that, I still love the character, but I thought they could have added an extra layer.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a good thought. Next up, this is our first fight scene, y'all. So long story short, the Rangers spread out to fight these minions. Again, they're outnumbered 6 to 12. So I'm going to call these minions Oozers. I just thought it was...
Yeah.
Just thought that was cute. But then when they start fighting, we're hearing these silly interjections and farting noises. And it's silly, but there is good, martial artistry happening. And acrobatics and backflips and...
Oh, the backflips.
The choreography. Yes.
They got a backflip everywhere. Oh, you're on the floor? Let me backflip towards you. I couldn't do it. I kept laughing. I was like, oh, here comes another backflip.
It was like they're backflipping for no reason.
You could walk. That was unnecessary.
Exactly, yes. The actual stunts are pretty good. The kids are pretty good at fighting. The music in the background at this point is awful. It's a song called "Are You Ready" by Devo, and I hate it. And I was like, Devo has a song on the soundtrack? That's freaking crazy. But at one point, the Oozers are really getting the best of the Rangers, right? They're outnumbered, and the kids are still themselves, right? So it's to the point where the kids are getting cornered. And, Tommy is like, y'all know what to do. It's Morphin Time.
Yeah.
And so we start the Morphin sequence where each Ranger morphs into a Power Ranger associated with a prehistoric creature. For some reason, when they do this, it reminds me of the clips of the football players who say their names in colleges, on SportsCenter. Do you know what? I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm not a big sports fan, but it's very funny to me.
I think they got that from Power Rangers.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. So first up, we see Kimberly the Pink Ranger, and her animal is a pterodactyl. Next up is Billy the Blue Ranger. He's a triceratops. Third, we have Rocky the Red Ranger, and he's a T-Rex. Fourth, we have Adam the Black Ranger and Mastodon. Oh, they definitely could have done an elephant if he was a mastodon. Jesus, okay.
I guess they wanted to make sure that each person had a very different animal. And they're like, damn, he already has a prehistoric thing.
Well, I mean, Kimberly is a flying dinosaur, and she's also a flying creature in her next one. I don't know. The fifth one is Aisha, the Yellow Ranger, who's a saber-toothed tiger, which I think is pretty cool. And last, we have Tommy, the White Ranger, and White Tiger, which low-key to me doesn't fit in with the prehistoric theme.
No.
But
it kind of makes sense
we'll let it slide.
From the show why it doesn't fit. But yeah, if you never watch the show and you get into the movie, you're like, huh?
I probably watched the show and just like do not remember that detail. But I was like, I'm having a hard time thinking of another prehistoric animal anyway. So, Zach, do you think the animals are fitting for each ranger?
I never thought that they matched the animal with the personalities at all. They were just like, here you go. These are the ones that we thought of.
Right. It might have even been random. It's like, hey, draw a name out of a hat situation.
Figure it out.
Exactly, yes. Now all the Rangers are in their suits and they're flipping around all over the place. But now the Oozers are gone, which is hilarious. That was so funny to me. They're morphing. It takes like a minute for them to morph. And when they're done morphing, all of the villains are gone.
I think that the people who made this movie does love Power Rangers, because a big thing that is in Power Rangers, the show, is that they morph and the villains just stand there and watch them. So for the movie to happen, the villains is like, we're not going to stay here and wait for you to do this. We're going to leave. It's amazing.
I love that. That is just so funny to me because it feels realistic, right? It's one of those things where like a villain's doing a monologue and people are just sitting around listening to it, and it's like, I got time for this.
Especially if I'm not tied up. Like, why am I here listening to you?
Right, exactly. Off in the distance, they actually see some of the Oozers running away, and they are going to go after them, but they're cautious that they're, falling into a trap. So back at the command center, Zordon tells Alpha that he senses that the Rangers were too late and that Ooze is on his way. And Alpha is like, nobody can get in here without the power coin. But then Ivan just starts oozing his way through the door. So, doors don't really work on him. Yeah. So he morphs back into himself, like on the inside of the command center, and he still kind of has this hammy, nature about him, which is still funny. So when Alpha tries to attack him, Ivan zaps him into like an ay frenzy, which is
they really leaned into the ay in this one.
Right. Ivan is not happy about being locked in an egg for 6,000 years. And he's like, now it's time to pay the piper. And so, of course, because he's a showman, he actually pulls out a pipe and starts to destroy the command center. And he starts citing all of the historical events that he missed.
Oh, I love this. It was so
random. Exactly. I missed the Brady Bunch reunion.
And the Black Plague. How does that measure up? Why do you know about the Brady Bunch? You were alive 6,000 years ago.
Exactly. Oh, Jesus. So Zordon begins to lose strength as the command center is torn apart by Ivan. So back at the construction site, the Rangers are looking for the Oozers in what looks like this kind of unfinished building that's still like a part of the construction site. So they are in their Ranger suits. They each have a special tool on their suits, along with some type of gun in a holster. They are wearing full helmets, gloves, and what looks like latex suits. And I'm like, how hot were they filming?
Sweating.
Yeah.
Every crevice.
Yes. Well, the Yellow Ranger has flashlights. The Red Rangers have like a scope to detect bodies, but he can't track the Oozers because they don't have body heat. They're made out of ooze. So finally, they encounter the Oozers and another fight scene occurs. Now, the suits give them superhuman powers. Like, they're good fighters without the suits. But then when they put on the suits, when they morph into the Power Rangers, they are doing things that are not humanly possible, right? But it doesn't make them invincible. So one thing I really want to give the movie credit for is that it feels like these fights are fair fights, because the Power Rangers be eating it sometimes. Like, they be
yeah, they get their ass whipped.
Yes. And I actually enjoy that about this. So even like the Girl Rangers are getting, beat up too. And I'm like,
One thing I'll say about this movie that I thought was weird is that the Girl Rangers were in damsel distress a little bit more or a lot more than they are normally.
I would agree with that. I want to say Kimberly more so than Aisha. Like, Kimberly kept getting rescued.
Tommy! Oh my God. I started having PTSD. I don't know if you ever watched the show Inuyasha back in the day.
No. But I know he has the cat ears.
And his girlfriend was always in trouble. And, Inuyasha! All the time. And I was like, oh no, not this again. Not the screaming of your boyfriend name to save you. Like, you're a Power Ranger. Do something.
Oh, geez, exactly. So yeah, as the oozers are getting like flung across the site into structures, they disintegrate into ooze, okay? And some of these scenes are just very silly to me. But the funniest one, by far, is when two rangers kick an oozer in the head on both sides, and then the oozer's eyes kind of pop out.
Yeah, that was hilarious. First of all, the VFX for that was awful. But it was really funny.
Awful. It was very funny to me, yes. Not funny how they intended, but it was...
Yeah, that's not what they intended for.
It was hilarious to me. So some of the they start flying through the air. They're kicking these oozers like 20 plus feet across the construction site. Like, the superhuman power is just really like played up in a way that's very unrealistic, but whatever, it's for kids. So some of the scenes where like they're flying through the air don't really look that good to me either. You can kind of tell that they're on a string.
Yeah, on a wire.
Yeah. So, and I didn't really care for that. But overall, the scene is pretty entertaining. And we get the picture that the teens are strongest when they morph into the Power Rangers, right? And so the Blue Ranger has this contraption that helps him reach higher heights. And then the Pink Ranger has like a thunder whip. And there's like a crazy sideways kick scene. And
with the White Ranger? He was tornado.
Yes.
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, and there's even a dun, 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 dun joke. Like, it's silly. The scene was just very funny to me. And there's a point where the oozers' face masks start to look like the Mike Myers mask from Halloween. And I'm like, what is happening? Because when they showed the close-up of the oozers when they were first created, they looked different. But then these remaining oozers, their face masks just started to kind of like fall.
Yeah,
and look more like Halloween.
We don't have time. We can't put the makeup back on.
Exactly. So eventually, the White Ranger uses his sword to cut a cable that drops like a large metal receptacle on the remaining oozers. And so they are all gone and defeated. Now, right as they are about to head out to find Ivan, their power suits and weapons start malfunctioning, and they return to their regular teen selves. And when they try to communicate with Alpha using their watches, doesn't work. So they head out and arrive to the command center on foot to find it destroyed. And
on foot is crazy.
How did they get up there?
We don't even know where it is. It gotta be miles away from where they were, and they did it in the same night.
Exactly. They get there, they find everything destroyed. The door is covered in ooze, so they know Ivan's been there. They run over to Zordon, who is now outside of his time warp and dying. And now he's like a little white man in this gray gown, dying on a bed of crystals. He looks like powder. Have you seen?
He looks like powder. He does. He's very, very, very white from the Caucasus,
yes,
the mountains.
Yes. So then, when the Rangers are trying to figure out, like, how do we save him? He's like, nah, the power, the Zords, the weapons, they're all gone and destroyed. And it's like, Zordon is giving up, y'all. He's like, y'all are just regular teenagers now. Goodbye. Like, that's kind of like his attitude.
He's like, just end my misery. I'm tired of this.
It was good while it lasted. That was
evil wins.
Yes. That was his attitude. Yeah. And he's, the Power Rangers are no more. And Zordon is like, Ivan has won, right? And Kimberly is like, don't die, Dad. She's like, she has some daddy issues a little bit.
She definitely did. She's like, you've been my dad for these last couple months. I was like, whoa. I got family.
Yeah, exactly. Hologram dad. But suddenly, Alpha comes in clutch out of nowhere with a solution. And he's like, oh, there's a power on a danger planet named Thanos, and you got to travel there and retrieve the power and save Zordon. And Alpha's like, let me find some of these resources, crystals, whatever it was, so that he could get the teens to the planet. But unfortunately, he won't be able to get them back. So they'll have to actually find the power to transport themselves back. So they are taking a risk because this could be a one-way ticket,
to some planet they don't even know if they can breathe on it.
Right, exactly. But for them, it's worth it. They got to save Daddy Zordon, right? So Zordon apparently does not have much time. We obviously see that Kimberly is the very sentimental one, right? And so Alpha uses his machinery to rainbow transport the powerless teens to Thanos. So they are on their way to try to regain some power and rescue Zordon. So back at Lord Zed's lair, the four villains, Lord Zed, Rita Repulsa, Mordant, and Goldar, watch as the Power Rangers go after what they call the Great Power. Now, Rita is pissed as Ivan walks in because he hasn't defeated the Power Rangers yet. Mm-hmm. And so Ivan uses some ooze to shut Rita up.
That was crazy.
It's pretty gross.
And electrifies her when she tries to touch it.
Oh, it does. Yeah. So it's a trap. Yeah. Much to Lord Zed's delight. He's like, finally, somebody shut her up. Yeah. So Ivan basically comes in, sits on Lord Zed's throne, and declares himself like the new leader of evil, essentially. And Lord Zed is mad about being double-crossed and tries to attack Ivan with his little lightning beam, but Ooze is unaffected. He's very unbothered in this movie, and I love it. I love it.
And I think this is a pivotal scene for him. Like, if you're a Power Ranger lover, Zed is the guy. He's the bad guy. Yeah. So we're watching a movie and you have this new bad guy. For him to come in there and just kind of like, you're nothing. I think that makes him like the scariest. Not only did he just bop Zed, he bopped Zordon. No, we've never seen anyone touch Zordon. So, so it was just like, oh no, this is the worst of the worst. So I think they did a really good job of setting that up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very interesting, like right away to see kind of Lord Zed and Rita kind of taken out of the game, right? Because he shrinks them and he puts them into like this small snow globe, and then he did it pretty easily. And it's like, these are our villains. Yeah, but Mordant and Goldar end up being threatened by Ivan, and they're like, you want to go in the snow globe or you want to serve me? And they're like, we ain't like them no way, What you need, Ivan?
Damn, I was like, Jesus, they turned on him faster than Drake's crew. Woo.
Basically. That is hilarious. So when they ask him about the Power Rangers, Ivan hawks this disgusting purple loogie, which is so gross. But it turns into like 12 large bird-like creatures who are ordered to fly to Thanos and tear the Power Rangers apart. What do you think about these oozers, these winged oozers?
I remember when I was younger, I loved their design. And
really?
I still love them now. I just thought it was so cool. Because obviously the oozers were just like, they're jokes. They're like the putties from like the original show. Whereas like they're just there for the Power Rangers to stretch their legs and beat somebody up before they fight somebody that's actually a problem. But these were cool because they fly. We haven't really seen henchmen that could fly so far. And they were just really goofy, but like also scary. I really like the practicality of their suit and stuff like that. So I really like them.
Yeah, I felt like their costumes were okay. I just really didn't like that you could tell they were men inside of bird suits from like how big their chests were. I wish they had maybe done something there to make them look more bird-like. I don't know. I don't design costumes. I don't know anything. So So the Power Rangers make it to Thanos and they land on this kind of beautiful, like low-key beautiful rocky shore. Yeah. They end up finding the skeleton of like a large scary creature. And then we see a cloaked figure watching them from afar. Ooh, mystery, right? Yeah. And so next up we see Ooze, Goldar, and Mordant in a chemical plant. So Ooze plans to turn the parents of Angel Grove into zombies that will dig up his twin weapons, the ectomorphicons. And in the plant, he begins manufacturing his ooze. So he's a businessman, right? So
capitalism.
Back on Thanos, the Power Rangers are taking a delightful stroll on the shore. Was it just me or were they not rushing?
Yes, thank you. Like, oh, we gotta hurry up.
Yes.
It was like, oh, maybe we might stay there. It's nice.
I was like, do y'all care about Zordon? Like,
or the Earth? Are you right back there?
Kimberly and Tommy even stopped to talk about it, like to have a conversation. And I'm like, y'all, this man is dying. Zordon is dying. No sense of urgency, right? But they have a little conversation and he comforts her right before the winged oozers attack. And because they don't have their morphin powers, the kids have to fight without their superhuman strength. And they are getting beat up. They are
as we say in New York City, mollywopped.
Yes, exactly. One of the things we talked about this earlier, but there's more flipping for no reason. I I love it. It's so funny.
It doesn't matter if they're Power Rangers or just regular. They flip backwards, forward, sideways. It don't matter.
Yes. Kimberly eventually ends up getting like swept away and lifted up by one of the flying oozers, and the Rangers know that they are in trouble, like she's literally being carried away. But then suddenly the cloaked figure makes themselves known, and Kimberly is dropped to the ground without injury.
Without injury. It's true, yeah. She was fine. Her clothes wasn't even dirty.
Yeah, nothing. That was crazy to me. Her ankle's not hurt, nothing.
They just strong as oxes.
Exactly. So this cloaked figure is a scantily clad woman with this kind of like divisible staff that she uses to fight and create this awful sound that drives away the flying oozers. Why is this lady in a two-piece suit in a movie made for kids? I have no idea.
Look, I'm going to tell you. I don't know what you guys say about this, but this lady did things for me as a child.
Sure.
And I was watching this movie with my friend today because I was like, yo, I got to watch. I'm doing this podcast. I got to watch the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He said, yo, that's one of my favorite movies. So let's watch it. And when she came on the screen, he said, yo, when I was a kid, I was like, I know. And we never saw her again. That pissed me off. She never showed up. She wasn't in the end of the movie. She wasn't in no spinoffs. I was like, who is this? I got to Google her. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's
She's
sorry.
a beautiful woman, had a great body, and did like great in the fighting scene.
She's badass.
But it just feels weird in a kid's movie.
Yeah. I think they're trying to go for like the He-Man, Conan the Barbarian, Savage Land thing where they all kind of in loincloths and they're like savage. But the problem was she spoke eloquently, like she was in medieval times, so it didn't really match.
Yeah. You know, people often don't care what scantily clad women have to say anyway, so.
You're right. You are right.
Yeah. So when Rocky, thanks her for saving them, she smacks his hand and she tells him to go back wherever they came from, right? And this lady is like, the ground is littered with the bones of people who came here to get the power and failed. And so Tommy, the White Ranger, is like, we're different. We won't fail. And the lady trips him.
You get mollywopped. It's like, you ain't that different.
Yes. Again, but his clothes are still whiter than snow. He's immaculate. Okay. Immaculate white clothes. But she's like, y'all need to leave before it's too late. But then Aisha brings up Zordon, and she's like, oh, snap, y'all know Zordon? My name is Dulcia. I am the master warrior of Thedos. And when she hears that it's Ivan Ooze that they need to defeat, she's like, come with me, or your planet will be doomed. So she changed her tune real fast. Yeah. Zordon has pull on different planets.
I thought they were going to end up being that she was a former Green Ranger or something like that, because she was wearing green, she knows Zordon. Maybe she got stuck on this planet fighting Ooze. But once again, I'm trying to give the writers too much credit.
Yeah, missed opportunity. Yeah. Yep, exactly. So, back at the command center, Zordon is worried and he wants Alpha to find a way to communicate with the Ranger. So, Alpha is trying to figure out some tech stuff. That's what's going on back there. Now, next up, at the same park where the skydiving landing zone was, a disguised Ivan is promoting a product called Ivan's Ooze to a large group of children. It's kind of dressed up like a wizard, magician kind of person. So one of the kids is Fred, the child that we saw earlier in the movie. Now, the ooze is free, so he's not making no money off of it, but the kids are going crazy for it. And Ivan is like, share the ooze, show it to your parents, throw it in the faces. Yeah, he's like, just get the product out there, right? So back on Thedos, Dulcia takes the Power Rangers to the ancient ruins of the Ninjeti Temple. From there, she shows them the distant monolith beyond the jungle that contains the great power that they're looking for. The monolith is heavily guarded, and no one has succeeded at reaching it. Apparently, Zordon's wisdom in choosing these teens will be the advantage that they need to do this task that has never been achieved before. Yes. Because, of course, teenagers.
They are the future.
Yes. Dulcia says that you're going to call on the sacred animals of the Ninjeti for help. So back in Angel Grove, Fred's dad comes home to find a bottle of ooze on his counter. And when his dad opens it and touches it, he is zombified and begins walking along with other parents to what is the dig site for the ectomorphicon. So he is somehow hypnotized, zombified, whatever term you want to use, for the parents to make them his workers, right? So back at the command center, Alpha's trying to put together like this communication device, but when it starts to work, it acts more like a TV screen. And Alpha and Zordon see that there are a bunch of reports of missing parents and that Ivan is advertising his ooze on TV. Now Zordon is like extra worried now, and he's like, "Oh,
he got holes of telecommunications? Oh crap!"
Yes, exactly." So back on Thanos, Dulcea is performing a ceremony where each Power Ranger is instructed to look deep inside for an animal in their souls. And then she blows some dust over a fire. It's very, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Did you ever watch this series?
It is.
She blows the dust, right? And they get these new color-coordinated uniforms that look very ninja-esque, along with an animal that is like encrusted in like a little plate on their chest. And they use animal spirit terminology in this film, but I recognize that that's like a sacred religious element for indigenous peoples. So I feel like that kind of didn't age well, but the Power Rangers are now low-key dressed like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, no, I see it. I can. Yeah. When did the Mortal Kombat movie come out? They might have been inspired. Like, yo.
Oh, you know what? I'm not sure. I watched the Mortal Kombat movie recently, the first one that came out, and it was so bad.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's a guilty pleasure.
So bad. Yeah, I agree. It was
okay. So that movie came out in '95. So maybe it might have came out before this, and they were like, "Hey, this is what's in."
Maybe. I'm not sure. And who knows where inspiration comes from, right? Yeah. So here's the breakdown, right? We got Aisha, the Yellow Ranger. She got the bear. We got Rocky, the Red Ranger. He's an ape. Very interesting. Yeah. Billy, the Blue Ranger, is a wolf. Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, is a crane. Interesting choice. Adam, who's a Black Ranger, is a frog. Of course, he's disappointed until Dulcea is like, handsome prince. There's a kiss. Tommy, the White Ranger, is a falcon. Of course, he gets probably one of the cooler animals. Yeah. What do you think of these new animals in uniforms?
I love the ninja costumes. I think the ninja versions of the Power Rangers are always the coolest. I really, really enjoyed them each getting a different animal. I wish that maybe it fit their personality and what their powers are going to be. They didn't go that deep. But it was, as a kid, the dopest thing as hell. As an adult, it's just like, this is cool.
I feel like for this to be another planet, the animals are unimaginative. Where are the Avatar, The Last Airbender, like hybrid animals?
Yeah, that is a really good point. It's a completely different planet. We saw the dead body that did not look anything like a human. Why we ain't get one of those animals?
Right. Or even if it was reversed, right? Like if they started the movie with the regular animals and ended up being the prehistoric ones. Yeah. I know it doesn't work that way, but I was like, these are regular animals from Earth. Okay. Dulcea tells them anything is possible for you now. Some ninjetti stuff, right? And so Dulcea is like, I can't go with you because I'll age and die. And I'm like, God forbid she ages in her 2-piece bathing suit. So she wishes them well on their journey, and she morphs into an owl and flies away. So
random.
That is her animal. It's pretty random, yes.
I was like, why did she turn into a bird? And can they turn into animals now? What is happening?
Who knows? Who freaking knows? Yeah. So back at Angel Grove, Fred comes home looking for his dad, but his dad is down at the dig site with all the other zombified parents. Ivan is upset at how slowly these humans are working and decides to have some fun by making one of the parents dance on command for him while drinking a fancy drink, right? Mm-hmm. And so the winged oozers return from outer space to report back on their failure to destroy the Power Rangers. Ooze, however, finds out about Dulcea and becomes concerned that she will help them reach the great power and ruin his plans. Ooze, of course, destroys the winged oozers and pushes up his timeline to sundown because he's like, if Dulcea is there, she probably helped them on their way. And he's accurate. You
know what's going on.
Pretty much what happened, right? Yeah. So back on Thanos, the Power Rangers are kind of chilling at the same temple where they got their new uniforms. And I was like, what is happening? It's the next day. It looks like it's the next day on Thanos. And now they got some rest and are starting their journey through the forest or through the jungle. And I was like, there really is no urgency.
I have a feeling that they filmed a training scene and they were like, yeah, this movie's too long. Cut that shit out.
Okay. You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it was almost like, we're well rested. We got some breakfast and now let's start the day.
Let's go. Yeah, we heard. You good? You brush your teeth? All right.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right, let's roll. Yeah. So at the dig site, Fred is sneaking around and finds his dad using a pickaxe for no good reason. Did you see him using a pickaxe for no reason?
I was like, I thought you were supposed to pick the rock up and move it.
Yeah. Exactly. But when he tries to address his dad ignores him. Again, he's a zombie, right? So Fred overhears Goldar and Mordin ordering the parents around and realizing that they are unearthing something pretty large, because you can actually see some of the ectomorphicons kind of being unearthed, right? So he announces his plan to take over the world with his ooze and whatnot. And Fred, of course, hears all this and he's like, oh, snap. Now he has insider knowledge, okay? So Fred is actually kind of important to the story. Yeah. So in the jungle on Thanos, the Power Rangers are walking through a graveyard of like large dinosaur-like bones, and suddenly one of them comes to life, and this is where the graphics and animatronics or whatever it was are just freaking awful. Okay.
Really? I actually really liked them.
Really?
Yeah, I was like,
I could not stand
really cool
it
to me.
No, I hated it.
I was like, I like the practicality of it. I like the fact that it wasn't just like a VFX thing that you could tell it's not real. You can kind of tell it was real.
I didn't care for it.
Like, this is not for me.
No, it's not. It's not. The Rangers are pretty much outmatched, right? Like, how do you fight a skeleton? Who knows, right? So when rescuing Kimberly, because Kimberly is in danger.
She's the crane.
Yes. Yes. Tommy climbs on the back of the monster and removes a bone that connects the head to the body. I don't think that's how bones work, but it worked.
It worked. This is an alien dinosaur, so we'll let it give it a pass.
Yeah. So my least favorite scene by far. But back to the chemical plant, the parents are working to package and process the ooze, and the ectomorphicons have been assembled inside of the chemical plant, and the work of the parents is done. So Ooze is through with them and instructs them to return to the construction site and leap to their dooms.
That was crazy.
Which is freaking crazy.
That was crazy.
Yes.
It's like, yo, I forgot about this.
That was nuts. I really did not remember that part, right? So Fred, who's kind of skulking around in the plant, hears these plans. So Fred, of course, has to jump into action. So Ooze instructs Mordin to let the ooze from the giant vats flow. It's so that ooze that's been, processed in this plant is transferred into the two ectomorphicons, and then they get kind of energized by Ooze's little lightning beams, from his fingers. And so one of the ectomorphicons looks like a fly, and the other looks more like a praying mantis mixed with the scorpion situation. So they're both bugs, which is a weird choice.
Yeah, because there was no other bug-ish. He has like no set thing. Like he had the oozes from the beginning that looked like him. Then he had the random birds, and now you got bugs. I don't know what's going on. No Brandon.
Yeah. No real theme. Nothing but purple. That's just...
That's it. He said, if it's purple involved,
purple's the thing. Yes. Right. The graphics on the machines are actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
Very cartoony, but the ectomorphicons are brought to life with instructions to go and wreak havoc on the city. So that's what's happening right now. So finally, the Power Rangers on Thanos reach the monolith that has the power in it. And they're like really wary of like what's going to happen, because we know it's well guarded. We got to keep our guards up. And so they see some stone carvings of guards that end up coming to life and begin attacking them. What do you think of these stone guards?
I remember as a kid being terrified of them. Being as an adult, I'm like, they're still kind of badass. They were still kind of badass. They're a little goofy looking in parts, but still badass. Kind of scary. They were beating their ass. So,
yeah.
One thing I really like all these fights is that the Power Rangers, it was never about like, I'm the best fighter of the group. It was always like, oh, you're in trouble? Let me go help you. They always are like, oh, Billy's in trouble. Let me go backflip over there and go help.
Yeah, there's a backflip over there. Yes, there is a lot of teamwork and support that happens, which is great for kids to witness, right? So that's pretty cool. I feel like these stone monsters have like almost alligator-like in the mouth area.
Yeah.
Some of them have different weapons like a mace or like these kind of weird curved axe. Like, I'm not familiar with weaponry, okay? But they low-key look like Alf too, which is kind of funny. The snout area.
They're kind of like a mix between an alligator and a boar.
Okay. I can see that. So yeah, the Power Rangers call on the Ninjetti animals, and they start fighting the 4 rock monsters, right? And it's hard for the Rangers because they're made out of rocks. They're pretty unaffected by their martial arts, and they have large weapons, and we hear more silly catchphrases, and it's very corny, but it's just nostalgic. But when they finally get the best of one of the rock monsters and it falls into the water, it kind of disintegrates. And so, they aren't completely like invincible. So Tommy saves Kimberly again with a rock slide, and one of the monsters ends up cutting another one in half. And then finally Tommy does what he calls a ninjetti corkscrew kick. He jumps from this really high position and spins for like a ridiculous distance and kicks the mess out of the last monster. And I'm trying to figure out how he got to the ninjetti yesterday and is already appropriating ninjetti fighting moves.
He is the White Ranger. Just saying.
That is hilarious.
That's what I'm telling you. There had to have been like a training montage in between that day, and they just cut it out the movie. It was just like, they don't care. These kids don't care. These parents
that
won't
is
either.
Totally possible. Oh, that is hilarious. So once the last monster gets defeated after that corkscrew kick, a door on the monolith opens and this large kind of pyramid-like structure comes forward, and it has an emblem of the sacred animals on it, right? And so then the animals kind of fly out of that emblem and they turn into like beams of light that fly into each respective ranger's little plate on their chest, and it restores their power and their morphin suits. They look like they got new weapons or new Zords, and they use that power that they have received to beam back to Earth as Dulcia watches them and wishes them luck in her owl form. So they accomplished what no one else was able to accomplish. Was it that hard?
Didn't seem that hard. Well, they couldn't beat them with their regular martial arts. And maybe these creatures that have tried before are selfish and they try to go by themselves. If it's one person fighting all of them, you're probably going to get killed.
That's true.
So since it's the Power Rangers, and I guess the whole lesson is if you work together, you can accomplish anything. So I'll give them that.
You know what? That's true. Yeah. Well, back in Angel Grove, the cartoon ectomorphicons are tearing up the town. Again, these are the 2 big bugs.
Such a wild name.
It is. They're terrorizing the streets in Angel Grove as Ivan watches with pleasure. Zordon and Alpha are watching on TV as the reporter is asking, where are the Power Rangers? At night, the Power Rangers return to see the town mostly destroyed and kind of evacuated, and they must deal with the ectomorphicons. They're like, okay, it's time, right? The town, appears to be a ghost town now, apparently, based on the mayor's orders. And so the Power Rangers use their new Ninja Zords, which are animal-themed assault vehicles that fly and have weapons. Yeah. Ivan is annoyed by this, but he's still kind of unfazed, right? He's not too
stressed.
He's not. He really isn't. So if you remember, the zombie parents are heading to leap to their dooms. And so some kids and some older people, I don't know if they're not parents and it didn't work on them, but there are some adults that are there at this party. But they're hanging out at like an Ivan Ooze themed party. Everybody's dressed up in purple. It's weird.
No parents. We're good.
Right, I guess. Yeah. Very Jimmy Neutron. I love that movie. The Jimmy Neutron movie where all the parents are gone. Yeah. They're having a gay old time. But Fred stops them and says, Ivan is evil and he's brainwashing you and he's about to kill our parents. We need to save the adults. He manages to convince them. And I'm like, was it that easy?
I guess they were like, oh, that's what's happening? We thought they just took a stroll.
Yes. Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So he was very convincing, I guess. Well, in the downtown area, the Power Rangers are attacking the 2 machines, but these machines are fighting back. They're actually pretty hard to take down. And the Zords are actually taking quite a bit of damage. Yes. And I love that the villains are actually formidable. They're not easy to take down. It's actually a struggle for them to overtake these 2.
Then you just get the new powers and we're just washing them up.
Yeah, exactly. So Fred, again, was able to convince the kids to come with him to, help their parents. And they're using a train or monorail to get to the construction site. The Black and Blue Rangers are trying to hold the mantis kind of scorpion ectomorph in place to get it ready for an attack. So as the Pink Ranger tries to use her Zord to deliver that blow, Ivan interferes with her Zord, putting her into some kind of electromagnetic hold with his little, purple lightning powers. But the others can't really hold on much longer. Kimberly uses her thrusters to get away, but the Ectomorphicon is able to throw the Blue Ranger off of him, but not without breaking its tail, which releases a bunch of ooze. So I guess that Ectomorphicon starts to lose power because it's losing its life force.
Losing that ooze, man. You gotta
right,
get the ooze.
Right. You ooze, you lose. Of course, that was...
You ooze, you lose. That's amazing.
Course, yes. Yeah. So the White Ranger comes back and ends up delivering the final blow because his Zord got damaged earlier. But he's always
the one to give the final blow in this movie.
Right. Exactly. And he destroys that first Ectomorphicon. So the little mantis scorpion one is out. Right. And so they move on to the second one, who looks more like a fly, who they're cornering at a dead end, right? And so Ivan is getting pissed off now because at first they were just these little annoyances, but now they're more formidable. They've destroyed one of his weapons. He has to jump in. So Ivan oozes himself into the remaining Ectomorphicon and changes it to look like himself and increases its size, which is crazy to think about. Like, how does that work?
They were bigger than the Zords already.
Yes. Exactly. And so the new merged Ivan destroys the monorail track. It doesn't look like it's necessarily on purpose, but if you remember, the kids are actually on that train to go and save their parents. So he also uses a building as like a sword. So
that was crazy.
It's just huge. It's just, yeah. So the Power Rangers decide that they need to use the Ninja Megazord power, which basically is like combining all of the Zords into a large robot or Ninja being that they control from the center of the Megazord. It's very Optimus Prime, like that. This always reminded me of Transformers. But as they're transforming, Tommy decides that he needs to join them later because he has to figure out the monorail situation. How he knew there was an active train on the monorail, don't know.
How do you know the kids were in there?
Between Ivan, this big new Ivan and the Megazord, the graphics are pretty bad. But as Tommy approaches the broken tracks, he says, "Hang on, kids." And I was like, how do you know there were kids on the train? Who knows?
I don't know.
So anyways, he uses his Falcon Zord to bridge the perfectly sized gap on the tracks so that the kids can stay on their way to save the parents. Now,
it was pretty perfect.
It was. So the Megazord starts to take some damage and Tommy is on his way because this team, it just really can't operate without Tommy.
No, she literally said, "Bring your ass down here, Tommy."
Yes. Yes. Yes, those exact words, right? So Tommy is on his way to them. The Megazord gets thrown through a building. Like, he's not playing with them.
No.
And all of their systems are down. Now, finally, Tommy, who apparently is the missing link, joins them and they are a complete Megazord, right? So they're like, we need to go to outer space to minimize the damage to the town, right? So we need to get them up out of here. So the parents are heading to the construction site where they will leap to their doom, which is what they keep repeating over and over again. Yeah. So the kids arrive and Fred comes up with the plan. The kids are going to try to stop their parents from becoming lemmings, and Fred, Skull, and Bulk head towards some machinery. We don't know what the plan is right now at this point. Now, in the Megazord, the Blue Ranger decides that they should use Ryan's comet to destroy Ivan. How formidable is it that a comet is on the way as, Ivan comes back to life?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. What a coincidence. Timing. Exactly. So right as the parents are about to jump to their deaths, Fred uses a hose that gets lifted up on some type of crane or something. I don't know, machinery. But Fred uses the hose to spray down the parents and push them back from the edge. I don't want to associate it with civil rights era stuff, but it's an interesting tactic.
I'm just glad that no one in the front line was black. Because it would have been weird.
Yes, would have been awful. Weird. Yes, but apparently the force of the water is enough to keep some parents from jumping off the edge, okay? Now, interestingly enough, Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed are still in the snow globe and they're able to watch as the Power Rangers take on Ivan and they are rooting for the Power Rangers.
For once.
Yes, right. So Ivan grips the Megazord, like face to face, kind of taunting the Rangers until they are in the trajectory of the comet. Now, in order to break away from Ivan's grip, the Yellow Ranger decides that they're gonna knee Ivan in the crotch right before the comet collides with Ivan. That was so funny to me because she was saying like, well, I guess we got to do what we got to do. And I was like, well, I don't remember this part. What happens? And as if a robot Ivan would get kneed in the crotch and feel something. I don't know.
No, but what killed me, let's not even talk about the fact that indeed, to knee someone in the crotch, there's an emergency red button that you have to break to get into because it's so illegal to knee someone in the crotch that you have to do it as your last resort because of honor. No ninja should be doing this.
Exactly. That's hilarious. Yes. No fair fighting anymore. So yeah, the comet collides with Ivan. He's dead. He's gone, apparently. And back at the construction site, the spell that had come over the parents is kind of broken. And so they're not trying to jump off the ledge anymore. And so Skull and Bulk kind of made themselves useful in Fred's plan a little bit. And Fred reunites with his dad and they hug, which is actually a sweet moment. I thought that was pretty cute. So the Rangers report back to the command center where Alpha tells them that they are too late. So all of the Power Rangers put on their best sad faces. They literally showed the faces of each and every Ranger.
When they got to like the fourth person, I was like, are you going to close your eyes too? Yeah. Oh yeah, you are. Everybody's going to close their eyes. Okay.
Yes. All of them put on their best sad faces one by one. I feel like I literally can like hear the director saying, all right, cue sad. Cue sad. Oh, geez. Zordon looks all wrinkly and lifeless in his bed of crystals. And Tommy reminds them all things are possible. So they circle around Zordon and they believe, I guess, I don't know what they're doing. They just are in a circle. It not only brings Zordon back to life, but it reverses all the damage to the command center. That I did not remember. And I was like, this is going too far. If Tommy wants to do a corkscrew kick from 30 feet in the air, cool. Cool. If y'all want to stand in a circle and hold hands and believe, and then all the damage gets reversed, like literally in reverse order, this is too much.
Yeah, it was... They pushed it. They should have been like, okay, we revive him, and then we have to fix the damage.
Yes.
Because now it's like, oh, well, if you could just believe and hold hands, I could get rid of any problem in 3 seconds.
Exactly. Right. Let's kumbaya. Yeah. Zordon is back. Everybody's happy. Earth is saved, right? So back in the city, Skull and Bulk are telling exaggerated stories about how they help save everybody, whatever. And I'm still like, why are they hanging out with these
losers?
Why? Yeah, but the Rangers are eating a crab leg feast. Did you see those big crabs? I was like, I love crabs.
It's well deserved, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know what? You say
they went to another planet.
Yes.
And fought alien rock monsters.
Yes, and prehistoric skeletons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They deserve it. Yes, exactly. But yeah, I need some crab legs. Actually, I'm getting hungry. So Fred comes up to them, to the Power Rangers, right? And they give Fred some kudos for saving the parents. And they talk a little bit about like how he would be a good Power Ranger, right? And he's like, I can be a Silver Ranger. And he's like, you know what? F that. I'm going to be the Gold Ranger. And of course they're like, yeah. Again, Fred apparently doesn't know that they are the Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, yeah.
So, well, anyways, the fireworks show starts, and this goes back to that fun fact from earlier, right? Where they got people to come out for the fireworks so they wouldn't have to pay for the extras. But the fireworks end up spelling like, thank you, Power Rangers on a billboard. Bulk and Skull are mad that they didn't get any credit for saving the day for whatever reason. And then the credits roll with the fireworks and like these meaningful looks between Tommy and Kimberly. And I was like, this is very interesting. Because we kind of knew Tommy and Kimberly were together without them having to kiss or even really touch or anything. It's very subtle and like kind of cute. And it goes to show that like things can be subtle. Yeah. And doesn't have to always be like, oh, we're making out all the time. And
it doesn't have to be lusty.
Yes, exactly. Even though they are teenagers, they were probably doing stuff in the background.
Oh, 1000%. That's probably what they were doing in that time where the night changed and we were like, wait, why are y'all still? They were lusty.
Yeah. Yes, the Crane and the Falcon. Yes.
Oh.
So the one thing I do want to say, the person who plays the Pink Ranger, her name is Amy Jo something. I can't think of her last name. I thought that she was Hilary Swank. I don't know why. They kind of look alike, but for a long time when I was a kid, I thought that she was Hilary Swank.
That's funny.
Yes.
Especially since Hilary Swank was in The Karate Kid. That's hilarious.
Yes. So the song that's playing in the background as the credits get ready to roll is Dreams by Van Halen. They have like some hard-hitting like artists on this soundtrack, which is low-key crazy.
Yeah.
Well, in another scene, it's kind of like a mid-credit scene. Goldar is sitting on the throne in that, you know, villain lair and is acting like the king of the universe, right? And there was a minute in the movie where Mordant was missing. Like, we didn't see him at all.
He just didn't show up anymore.
I was like, where did he go? I don't know what happened to him. But anyways, they're playing around on the throne or whatever. And Rita and Lord Zed are free from the snow globe. And now they're ready for revenge on the two cronies. And so then we go back to the credits.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
What a
Y'all,
journey.
this was a ride. Yeah. Exactly. So that's the end of the movie, y'all. And at the end of every review, we ask the same two questions. Is it worth a rewatch? And does it still hold up today? Zach, what do you think?
If you are a fan of Power Rangers, it's definitely worth a rewatch. I think that most of the movie holds up. Like you mentioned, there's certain things that don't. I think that a lot of the practical effects hold up. It's not the best thing. It's not going to compare to like right now, but they're not so bad that it's unwatchable. The VFX at the end are not good. No. At all. It reminds me of this show called Reboot. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Mm-mm. Where it was like these CGI characters in a CGI animated like computer world, but like it looked like that, but supposed to be in a real world. It's just the Zords didn't look good. The Ivan Ooze inside the robot didn't look good. It didn't look good. And Power Rangers usually use practical like toys to do the Zords, so that's why it was kind of jarring to see a CGI one. Obviously, the one-liners don't really hold up because very, very 90s. But I watched it and I was like, you know what? This movie can be remade and freshened up and would be fine.
You know what? I'm not mad at you for that. I could see that.
Yeah, like if this movie was like an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If you add like 40 more minutes and like take it seriously, you can make this like an origin story for the Power Rangers and get Jim Carrey to play Ivan Ooze.
Oh, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I'll be down. Like, just get a bunch of actual, like, young-looking... Get the Stranger Things kids. Make them the Power Rangers. You could do it. But, yeah, I feel like a lot of the movie holds up. It feels a little bit like a Star Wars. It feels a little bit like an Indiana Jones. That whole temple kind of thing. It feels a little bit like Batman 89 with the scene with the plane. He gets a Joker. It kind of felt like that a little bit. It takes a lot from, like, the other 80s and 90s films. It feels like a lot of those things. But I think it holds up for the most part.
Yeah, well, for me, I think that if the Power Rangers were a big part of your childhood, you should definitely rewatch this movie. I don't think, if you weren't a fan of Power Rangers, it'll probably be lost on you. Don't waste your time.
No.
But I will admit that when I started my viewing experience, like watching the movie for this review, I felt like this movie is going to be cringeworthy. It's going to be lame because I'm an adult now. But I was actually entertained throughout this movie. And I didn't remember everything that happened in the film. So it felt still like fresh to me because a lot of the details just I didn't remember. I was pleasantly surprised by like the realistic martial arts scenes, you know, even before they morphed into their suits. The storyline was decent. The villains were funny and familiar and formidable. And Ivan Ooze had a way about him that made him likable. I really liked him a lot. The Power Rangers are like a co-ed, multiracial, butt-kicking group of teenagers. And from a kid standpoint, they're doing cool things like skydiving, rollerblading, flying, you know, using assault weapons. I'm just like,
but I will have to say though, at least the skydiving was for a good cause. So it's like, yeah, we skydive kids, but we're saving an observatory. Yes. Yeah, we're using assault weapons, but we're saving the world.
Yes. Exactly. So that, you know, they have things that kids like want to do and that they want to look up to, right? Yeah. So overall, it was an entertaining watch. It was very nostalgic. It wasn't as cringy or lame as I thought it was going to be, despite there being some corny jokes, you know, along the way. Very 90s humor. But as far as it holding up today, I'm going to say kind of. Right? For some of the same reasons that you're saying, right? Some of the graphics are awful and cartoony, specifically the ectomorphicons and when, you know, Ivan becomes one of the ectomorphicons. Some of the stunts were just ridiculous and like a little poorly done. Like you can tell where the strings are. Yeah. Some of the costumes could have been better, particularly Morton's. I hated his specifically. The jokes were a little corny. I feel like when it comes to what kids are exposed to these days, I think this movie feels very light-hearted, right? Like kids today are exposed to a lot more violence, a lot more lusty, as you call it. Material, right? And so the only kind of racy thing that happens in this film is when they knee Ivan in the mega crotch. So, which again is still funny. It's still funny. So I'm curious. I don't really know how kids would do these days with this movie. Like if I sat down my nieces and nephews and they watched this movie, how engaged they would be. I'm actually not sure if my nieces and nephews are Power Ranger fans. So I'm curious. I don't know how it would do with like the kind of kids that are being created these days with the type of media that they consume. Zach, do you think modern children would take to this film the way that we did almost 30 years ago?
I think young children between like the ages you watched Power Rangers, like 5, 8. I think once you start getting to like the preteens, teenagers, they're going to be like, oh, where's the TikTok and Instagram and the social media and the cameras and the iPads and all the technology stuff? And why are they skydiving and skateboarding? Yeah, they're going to be like, what is this crap? And what's this language they're using? Where's the slang? Nobody twerked. So I feel like it would work really well for like 5 to 8, maybe 10.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? You're probably right. That makes sense to me. Some of the other things that don't really hold up, I feel like they kind of had a little spirit animal thing going on, which is like not okay these days. Also, the damsel in distress, particularly Kimberly always needing to be rescued by Tommy, that doesn't hold up well for me either. But what I will say, on a positive note, I didn't really pick up on any racial stereotypes. Aisha, that's a black name. Aisha is a black name. She is a black girl, and she wore braids, which I think is super cool because I always wore braids back in the day.
And we don't get to see it in positive light most of the time. So
Exactly. So once again, overall, I really enjoyed rewatching this film. So if you are bored and you liked Power Rangers when you were a kid and you want to take a walk down memory lane, I would suggest you check it out. Yeah. Okay. So Zach, you said you looked it up, but what do you think about what the critics had to say on Rotten Tomatoes about this film?
They did not like this.
Look, the critics gave it 32% and the audience gave it 57%, which, is not good. Now, I feel like the ratings are ridiculous, and here's the problem for me. One of my biggest gripes with Rotten Tomatoes is that I feel like the people doing the ratings are really not the target audience of the films. And it's like, if you weren't a child in 1995 and the franchise didn't mean anything to you, you're going to judge this movie more harshly than someone who has a connection to the story and the Power Rangers. And this is why I like to rank movies based on how they make me feel. Like, forget the bad graphics. Forget all of that stuff, right? And the corny jokes. The nostalgia of this movie is everything. How would you rate this movie?
Well, out of like 10?
Out of 100.
Oh, out of 100. Oh. Just off of the vibes, nostalgia, and the fun, and like the nostalgia berries that were popping off in my brain, I'd probably give it like an 80, 85. I think that's
I'm right in that same ballpark. I give it an 80 too.
Yeah.
Or an 80 as well.
Okay. That's very specific.
Yes, but yeah, Rotten Tomatoes be tripping. But anyways, thank you all so much for listening to our review of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, here at Supmedia Reviews. I want to say a special thanks to Zach from Zach Attack Reviews for joining me today. Zach, did you have a good time?
I had a great time. I was so excited to talk about this movie after watching it. I was like, this was so silly. I gotta say, Ivan Ooze is one of the most underrated villains of all time.
I agree.
He was so funny. He was menacing. And like you said, the whole nonchalant, like he was so nonchalant until like the last 20 minutes of the movie where he's like, oh, I'm in trouble. Let me actually do something. And then it was kind of scary. He was throwing people through the building. So yeah, I had a great time talking about this movie. And you pointed out things to me that I didn't realize, like the spiritual part. I was like, yeah, that kind of doesn't age well that well. So yeah, good time. Yeah,
well, tell the folks one more time where they can find you.
Yeah, so my name is Zach, Z-A-C-H. Actually said Zach Attack Reviews. I do movie reviews, movie new coverage. I do a live stream every Tuesday. I do throwback reviews. I'm going to be reviewing Lord of the Rings Return of the King soon, the extended edition. I haven't sat down and watched it yet, but I reviewed the first 2 so far. I'm having a good time. And yeah, I do trailer reactions. I just cover movies in like all angles. So you can find me at my YouTube channel, Zach Attack Reviews, and any social media is Zach Attack RVS.
Lovely. Well, thanks again, Zach, for joining me. I'm very excited that you decided to be here. I really appreciate it. Listeners, do not forget to go check out Zach's channel, because next week I'm going to be joining him for a live stream. So make sure you check it out and subscribe now so you can get the notifications, okay? So listeners, let me know what you thought about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Does it hold up for you? Did you rewatch it recently? Share your thoughts with us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, next time, I will be doing my 20th anniversary review for Napoleon Dynamite, which is my favorite movie. Again, I'm very excited about that. You do not want to miss it. Peace out. Thanks for listening to Sub Media Reviews. I hope you enjoyed our trip down memory lane just as much as I did. If you have any suggestions for movies or TV shows you'd like me to review next, or if you just want to share your thoughts on today's episode, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest at Sub Media Reviews, and on supmediareviews.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps me improve the show and spread the word to new listeners. So until next time, peace out, home slices.